Let's talk about the final project in GEE7. This is a case analysis of gender-based violence. The expected outputs are as follows. 1. A narrative of the interview in Word format, and secondly, an audio or video recording of the interview. This is due on January 28, 2023. So here are the instructions. Okay, this is a qualitative research about gender-based violence, and it may feature a narrative of any of the following. You may either be a victim, it may either be a victim or a perpetrator or a witness. Okay. The purpose of this exercise is for you to understand the nature of this gender issue, to understand the circumstances as well as the factors that may lead to the occurrence of this social issue, as well as the effect of gender-based violence upon the researcher. Okay, as you interview the subject, or it may be that you are presenting narrative as witness by yourself, no? As a witness, it is required that you have witnessed it personally, meaning hindi kayo marites or it's not kwento-kwento lang, but you witnessed it with your own senses. You might have seen it, or you might be in the place of the occurrence of the gender-based violence immediately at the time of the occurrence or the perpetration of the crime, and you may not have seen it but the heard it heard heard the noises, for example, or heard the victim or the perpetrator in the engagement of violence, and then you might have had a chance to interview the victim or the perpetrator immediately after the incidents. Okay, so the narrative must include the following parts. There are 4 parts. 1, the profile of the subject. So as the profile, you must indicate the gender, the age, the civil status, and if married, the number and ages of the children, if the information is available, no? And then the occupation of the victim and the perpetrator, and other details that may be relevant to the case. Well, um, the names and the exact addresses and other personal information may be withheld upon the request of the subject, and this is in accordance with the privacy law. Okay, so it's important that we respect the privacy of the subjects. Number 2, the second part, which is the main part, is the description of the violence of incident. The incident or incidents of violence. Okay, just take note that it should be gender-based violence. What we mean is that the violence that occurred is due to the identity of either the perpetrator or the victim, in which case it should be noted that the violence is committed because of the uh, gender-based identity. Okay, for example, violence against women and their children in domestic violence, or violence against men because they are men, or violence against individuals or members of the LGBT because of their identity. Okay, in which case um, you will have the proper subject, if the proper subject and the proper interview. Okay, so the second part uh, must describe the incidents of violence. So the basic questions as to what or the type or form of violence and how it was committed, no? The date and time. When did the violence occurred? You have to describe it as to substantiate a narrative of a true incident of violence. Where exactly, where did it happen, and how? How did it happen? And how many times did it happen? Or the intensity of the violence in terms of the effect of the violence on the victim. No? Gaano kalala o katindi yung violence. This should be covered by the second part, which is a narrative of the gender-based violence. Okay. Thirdly, you have to indicate the reasons why the violence might have occurred. No, this is provided that you have the chance to interview the victim himself or herself, um, and ask him or herself what the reasons are for the violence. And lastly, it will be also important that the analysis of the case must feature your analysis of the case must also include the effect of the knowledge on your person as a researcher. What is the impact of your interview on yourself? No? If you have any questions about this project, message your professor, or you may address them during the uh, online or face-to-face classes. Okay? So this qualitative research about gender-based violence must be done observing utmost respect to the rights of the subject in terms of protecting their privacy. And the following must be done by the researchers in the various parts of the interview. Number one, researchers must respectfully introduce yourself. So, as a student of the university and your course or whatever other circumstance you might want to share with your subject to make uh, to make the interview comfortable. Second, the nature and purpose of the research must be adequately explained to the subject. In this part, you have to explain to him or her what is gender-based violence. Okay? So you must know at this point that gender-based violence is violence committed by inflicting physical, psychological, emotional, sexual, and economic harm on the victim, no? Based on his gendered identity. Okay? So you have to explain the nature and purpose of the research in terms of why you have to conduct the interview, and that is to understand why it is happening in our society and what could be done to minimize or eliminate this problem in our society. Okay? The subject must be assured that the research is purely an academic exercise. So this is a final project of your uh, course in gender and society. You have to explain that to your subject. Number four, interviews with the subjects who are not willing to disclose their identity must be documented using audio recording, or if video recording is used, the subject's face must be blurred or focused on their back to protect their identity. Okay? So these are the instructions that you must bear in mind in conducting this final project. Okay, again, your outputs are one, a narrative of the interview in word format, and secondly, an audio video recording of the interview. And this must be emailed to gender.society2021@gmail.com on or before January 28, 2023. Okay, good luck to all of you. Okay, good luck to all of you.